From the gospel we just read today, you will be wondering, why did Jesus pray before selecting these apostles? We hear that Jesus prayed throughout the night. Maybe it was in the morning that he chose all these apostles. And I think that the reason why Jesus spent throughout the night praying is to show us that the apostles are not just disciples. They are very important in our lives. But before then, I think it is good also for us to look, who are these apostles, especially Saint Simon and Jude? How did God call them? What were they doing before God called them? And why did God call them? All the apostles Jesus called, all of them had problems. We know St. Matthew, he was a tax collector, right? Jesus called him to be his apostle. What about Judas? You know, in the world now, no one wants to answer Judas, like Sister Baby Jude. So maybe she changed her name to Jude. No one wants to answer Judas. And we also know that the church didn't tell us much about Simon. And also remember that this Simon we celebrate today is different from St. Peter, Simon Peter. So this one is called Simon the Zealot. And the Zealot is just a group of people, Jewish people. We call them radical group. So this group was in charge of maybe revolutionary. They didn't like the Romans. Their plan was to put down the Romans. But Simon belonged to this group, and Jesus also called him. Remember in the beginning I told you about Matthew. Matthew was working for the Romans, and now Simon was against the Romans, but Jesus called them together in the same group. What do we learn from this? I think what we can learn from this is that Jesus loves everyone, and he wants everyone to be involved. Since Simon and Jude we celebrate today is just an example of this love. If we look at the image of St. Jude, he always holds the image of Jesus very close to his heart. And what that symbolizes is that he wants us to look at Jesus, because we know St. Jude is a saint of impossible or impossible cases. He wants us to look at Jesus and see if there is anyone around us. He wants us to involve everyone in our lives. No matter where you're coming from, no matter what you're doing, we should love everyone. You know, since Judas sinned against God or sold Jesus out, his name was also removed from the list of the apostles. But Jesus did not do that. In the Last Supper, when Jesus took the bread, Judas was the first one or the first person to receive the Holy Eucharist, even though he sold Jesus. But Jesus allowed him to receive, to be the one to receive the Holy Eucharist. And in the Gospel of John chapter 13, the Bible tells us that once Judas received this Eucharist, Jesus said to him, whatever you want to do, do it quickly. I think Jesus was referring to the devil inside Judas, not Judas. That is to show you that you may be seeing someone around you maybe behaving as he or she is not used to behave, but because maybe something is going on within that person. That is why there is a saying that do not judge book by its cover, because you don't know what is going on with that person. And what we have to do is just like Jesus prayed today before selecting his disciples, to pray for our enemies. Because that person we call our enemy, something that is going on within him or her may be the hands of the evil one. And we know when Jesus called Peter, "Get behind me, Satan," Jesus was not also talking to Peter. Jesus was talking to the devil inside Peter. And in one of the occasions, we remember also when Jesus told Peter that, "I can see the devil swifting you like the wheat, but I have prayed for you." When you rise, pray also for your brothers and sisters. Why I am mentioning all these saints instead of mentioning Saint Simon and Jude is for us to know why Jesus called all these people. But Saint Simon, as I said before, he was in a terrorist group, but Jesus called him Judas or Jude. Also the same thing, but Jesus called him to join him. So brothers and sisters, no matter what our friends, our neighbor, or whoever is in our lives have done against us, we should look as Saint Luke, holding the image of Jesus, telling us that I am the hope of the hopeless. I am the hope of those who are rejected. And this is what everyone is called to do, to be a hope of the hopeless around us. Those people that cannot find hope, we should be hope for them. Happy feast of St. Simon and Jude.